Welcome to the Men's Life Academy. Today we have Jason Klietz, who has taken the steps to be a manhood by striving to be the best possible version of himself. As he was once over 500 pounds, now he's on a journey of weight loss. Now, you can hear a lot of stories from him. And Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, glad to have you. I just love your story about how you're working out. And for people, as we know in the field, like Dave Dana and people like him, there's a lot of people who are just being so courageous and bold in showing their before and afters, especially when you're at times have a shirtless, picture of yourself. And I think that takes even more courageous because you have to kind of see that discomfort. So, kind of tell us about your journey and what led you to posting your weight loss journey on Twitter, because that's how we met.
Absolutely. So this story really goes back to 2011. At that point, I was checked out in life. I was in a horrible marriage. I was over 500 pounds. And January 17th, 2011, I had a stroke and I was
Oh,
dead
geez.
on my kitchen floor. I
For how
was
long?
resuscitated by paramedics. I was down for 7 minutes without oxygen,
Whoa.
is what they figure. They told me if it would have been 2 minutes later that I wouldn't be here today. That so I'm just like, wow, I got that second chance at life. So my story really starts there. Took me about 6 to 8 months to get past the anger of being brought back because the marriage I was in was terrible at the time.
Oh,
So I started to lose some weight. I'm like, okay, I'm still here. There's a reason why I'm still here. I need to figure this out. So I started working on it, and over 2011 to 2015, I went from 538 pounds down to about 480. And I was just changing some lifestyle habits at that point. In 2017, I walked out on my marriage finally, and I started to really work in myself opposed to just not doing things for myself. So I started to work out.
okay.
And by the time the pandemic had hit, I was down to 376 pounds.
Whoa. You went from 500.
Pandemic,
Wow.
yeah. So like by 2020, when everything was shut down, I went from the 538 down to the 376. Well, COVID hits, everything gets shut down. I lost my motivation to be in the gym. I lost a lot of things during that time. Not to mention, I took a serious concussion July 4th of 2020 that derailed
Oh,
me for even longer. So fast forward to April of 2022, or sorry, 21. Yeah, no, it was 22. My apologies.
that's
Uh,
okay.
I posted my day one photo going back to the gym on Twitter. So I'm like, you know what? Now's the day. I had just had a real ugly conversation with myself. I had noticed that I had ballooned back up to over 400 pounds. I was somewhere between 424 and 434 at the time. And I'm like, this isn't acceptable. I had that ugly conversation with myself in the mirror, and I'm like, it's time to resolve this once and for all. So I started going back to the gym. Over the course of that time up to this point, I have now gotten myself down to 330 pounds, and I'm continuously losing weight. Um, One of my biggest obstacles for the COVID period was not understanding how to work out when there was no environment available like the gym.
Right.
So this summer, I've actually taken the whole summer. I'm not going to the gym at all. I'm figuring out ways to work out not only at home, also in nature. So that way I can fill those voids. So the next time something like this happens, because I'm certain we've seen it once, we'll see it again. I have no excuse to stop working out and stop taking care of myself because somebody else took my environment away. I need to be able to create my own environment in which I can work out in. So that's what I'm using this summer to do, is to learn how to do those things. So I'm ready and I can take away excuses.
No, that's I mean, there's always that mirror. I know Dave Goggins talking about we have to have that conversation with yourself in that mirror. And whenever someone also has that conversation, I always think the Michael Jackson song, I'm talking to the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his
Yeah,
ways. And actually, I heard that song, I think a few days ago, which was on the radio. I was like, oh man, I love this song.
I do too. It's a great song, and the meaning of it is spot on.
It is. If you want to see a change in the world, the change has to begin with you. And a lot of that work actually becomes internal. And I know a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, was going through a difficult time where you really couldn't go anywhere for safety reasons. And not only that, but a lot of the gyms were closed. And so people had to figure out different alternatives. I know a lot of people were walking outside, and whether they decide to wear a mask or not, it's up to their choice, especially if, following the guidelines of the state that you live in. But for you, what was that kind of like, not having access to that motivation, that drive to lose that weight that was taken away? What was that like?
So at the time, it was devastating. Like, I was on a good track. Mentally, I was in a good spot.
Hmm.
Physically, I was in the best condition I had been since my 20s, and it was just snatched away. It really took a lot away from me. What I didn't realize is that I was only focusing on a weight loss journey at that point. I
Oh,
wasn't focused on everything else that goes with it. Ultimately, weight loss journey's great. It evolves into something so much more. And that's what I hadn't discovered yet. When I posted in April, I still hadn't fully discovered that there's more to changing your life than just losing weight.
hmm.
There's the mental aspect. Uh, there's a lot more. If you're not mentally capable of handling what you're about to do for yourself, then you're not ready. And I wasn't fully ready back in 2020 to overcome obstacles like I am today.
So what was that mind shift from that, I'm not quite ready to start my journey and maintain it, to this time is honestly going to be different. I had the ugly conversation with myself. I'm in a better headspace now. We lost all that weight that I regained. And that's what's also hard about a lot of weight loss. It's that yo-yo effect where yes, you lose weight, but sometimes it's easy to gain that weight back. So how you taking those steps and being proactive to be able to handle any setbacks?
Well, I've had an opportunity to work through several of those in the last few years. There's a lot of life lessons that I've been able to learn because of that. Uh, One thing that I've changed in my personal mentality is I never use the word can't. I
Mhm.
always say I'm working up to it, or it's physically an incapability. I never use the word can't. Once I changed that alone, that opened a few doors. Um, I've done things in the last year that I never thought I would ever do in my life, simply because I gave it the effort to see if I was able to do it. And when I figured out that I wasn't physically able to, I set a goal to start working up to doing certain things. Like, I want to be able to do pull ups. I'm
Mhm.
not physically capable of doing pull ups yet. I try every time, and
Mhm.
I'm able to at least get my feet off the ground now. So that's a start.
That's a huge start, yeah.
It's working up to things that previously I wasn't able to do that changes a lot for me.
Okay, so you can kind of see the results, because that's what kind of stops a lot of people from progressing in life, is that they don't necessarily see the results. If you look, there's a book by Stephen M.R. Covey called The Speed of Trust that I got done reading in a book club, and the book talks about that people need to see results. are you adding to someone's life, which he calls dividends, or are you taxing them and taking things away? You can always apply that to yourself. So, what value are you adding to yourself or taking away? So it seems like you're kind of documenting that kind of little achievement. I shouldn't say little, major achievement, where you're working up to doing a pull up, and now you're seeing that progress, that results of the weight loss to be able to lift up your feet off the ground.
That's exactly it. And that's just one of many little things that I've got goals on. I want to be able to do 20 miles on a bike in an hour. That's a goal that I've set. I was actually challenged by Mark Collins to do that, and it's a goal that I continuously work on. Every time I'm in the gym, I go on the bike and I see if I've been able to increase my speed, and I'll spend time working on that goal because I want to achieve that goal.
Yeah, no, that's honestly it's very inspiring, and that's a huge goal to do 20 miles in an hour. So you're gonna have to let me definitely know when you accomplish that. Snap a video, snap a picture because that'd be awesome to see. And kind of going back real quick toward camp. Since I was a child, I kind of owe this up to my mom, even though I didn't always believe it and didn't always act on it. But the word can't means won't a lot of times. And what are you unwilling to do?
You're absolutely right. And that's the thing with the word can't, once you've said it, you've already locked it in your mind that you don't have the ability to do it. The
Yeah.
reality is you may have the ability to do it, you may not have all the tools available yet. Figure out what the tools are you need to achieve the goal. That's the real win because the goal will happen as long as you keep working towards it. It may take longer. Like for me, I figured by now I would already be at 200 pounds and in physically better condition. The reality for me is I'm not. I'm 46, almost 47 years old. And throughout these last couple of years, I've suffered major health issues and injuries
Mhm.
that have derailed my progress.
Yeah, so like you said, that's the biggest thing that a lot of people struggle with is having the tools and resources. Because you can talk to somebody like, well, weight loss is relatively easy. Eat less, work out, and why can't you do that? Versus we know this information, but what skills, what routines are you working to develop to be able to achieve the results? And as you alluded to earlier, you hit on a spot point. Not a lot of people are prepared mentally to handle the weight loss journey. What's it going to be like when you have a setback? I know Tyler Top focuses setbacks are really opportunities to set you forward. But again, that's a mind shift where it really starts in the heart and in the mind to really focus on developing that. Just so to hear that in your journey, I mean, that's a major life lesson that a lot of people need to kind of hear about is develop the tools, the resources, the skills and strategies. Because I don't know about you, but I noticed like a lot of people have the information, but they necessarily need to improve upon is to focus on what strategies can they begin to implement. So it's kind of like you can read a self-help book, a personal development book, but what lessons are you really taking heart, or are you just reading a book to read a book?
You're absolutely right. And what it comes down to is it's good information until you put it into practice.
Hmm.
Once you put it into practice, now it becomes great information. Like for me, I never would have thought 2 years ago I would be where I am today. And that's all because of the investment that I've put into myself. I look at time as an investment, just like anything else. It's a currency in a way, and you want to use it for the best possible outcomes. Investing in wrong things is going to set you back.
Yeah. And that's where you have to really begin to know yourself. What are your temptations? What are your triggers? You know, what situations are you going to be in? I mean, I know you alluded to this year for the summer, you're not going to go to the gym and you're going to try to really involve yourself into nature and working at home. So that way, I'm sure it's going to help you really set you up for, you know, gray in the winter when it gets kind of cold. And I know you said you're in Minnesota, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So those winters are terrible, from what I hear.
Yeah,
I haven't been
they
to
definitely
Minnesota
can
before,
be.
so especially when you're in that area, that's gonna be good when you literally can't go outside because roads are like icy, slick, and unless you want to risk the spin out.
And for me, I'm that crazy guy that I actually in my daily career, I'm a delivery driver. So
Oh, so yeah.
yeah, those cold days, those rainy days, those hot days, it doesn't matter what the day is. I'm on the road working. Like yesterday, it was almost 90 degrees with a lot of humidity. It was very tropical. I spent 6.5 hours on the road working. I have never sweat so much in my life. I liked it a lot, to be honest with you.
Hey, sweat is good. Get rid of all those toxins. Just think of all those impurities, all those toxins, all that negativity, just leaving the body, especially if you're feeling good about it. I mean, that's what saunas are basically. I mean, you had your own little personal sauna for the day.
Exactly. I look for the positive in every situation, even if it's hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, that's another. I mean, you're just hitting on so many key lessons. Find, the small good thing that happened because if we can begin to focus more so on the small victories, that's going to outlast the major victories, which you're going to feel, adrenaline rush. You're going to feel great for that moment, maybe for the next couple of days, but eventually that would kind of taper off versus every day finding a small victory of a reason, of a purpose, of a cause to believe to keep moving forward.
You're absolutely right. A lot of what derails people is their own mentality.
Hmm.
So being able to flip out of a negative mindset into a more positive mindset will really open some doors for people. It has for me. And I do catch myself on occasion looking at a situation going, man, it really didn't work out. This sucks. I can't believe that. I've tried so hard. And you get down on yourself. And it's like, wait a minute, though. Think about what this would have been like even a year ago. I wouldn't have even come as close as I did to this a year ago because I wasn't physically in the same space that I am now. And understanding that the things I'm able to do now are only because of the work I put in to this point. If I was still over 400 pounds, there's no way I'd be doing the things I do.
So do you find that thought kind of the past, but in a good way, of a good kind of introspection of, even though in the past I was 400 pounds, no way I could have been doing that today, as kind of that way to kind of snap yourself out of that, let's say, negative fixed kind of mindset?
Definitely. I mean, negativity is our own worst enemy. And for me, I've been my own worst enemy for my whole life. And figuring out how to get out of my own way has been one of the biggest wins that I've personally had. Because now instead of looking at things going, oh, I can't do that. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. And letting my anxiety take over, I'm like, no, I've got this. And I just jump in full force now without allowing my own brain to stop me from attempting something. You never know what you can actually do till you make that attempt.
Yeah. That's the problems that a lot of times we're our worst enemy, really. Oh gosh, who sung that song? I know there's like another artist that my own worst enemy. That was it Lit?
Yes, lit.
Okay.
Great song.
So I know you're a musical guy, so this is why like all these like musical things that come in my mind right now.
You're hitting some good ones, not gonna lie. Yeah, music is one of the biggest parts of my life. I roadie a band called Strange Days. Like I was just on the road this last weekend with them. We effectively played 3 shows in 24 hours. That's 3 setups and teardowns in that time frame. Uh, it was a lot of work and it physically was demanding, and I made it through. And I took one short rest day on Sunday. Monday, I was right back on the road delivering. I actually delivered 2 days in a row for the first time in a long time, since my knee injuries popped up. Earlier
Oh,
this year, I had to come off the road full time because I have tendonitis in both my knees, and according to my doctor, I was just overusing my knees. So I have been building strength in the tendons and all the other things to rehab that situation so I can keep moving forward. And so far, I can tell in the back to back delivery days that the work I've put in has made a difference.
wow. You talk some about some major victories and major results, knowing that you're able to do 2 deliveries in a day, especially with having some knee problems and still working on strengthening, the area around the knee to hold everything all nice and tight.
Yes, it's a lot. I mean, like yesterday I had 140 stops with multiples. The day before I had 146 stops with multiples.
Oh,
And
shoot.
that's a lot of stops. I mean, I'm in and out of the van all day long. I don't stop moving for 5 to 6 hours a day. It's great. It's one of the reasons I took this job. It was a personal challenge of mine to work somewhere where I physically am active for my whole day. This is
Yeah, and
something I've
I'm
never been able to do, and now I'm able to do it.
yeah, and I remember you posted, tweeted, Xed, whatever. I'm not sure what the latest term is now, but I remember when you posted that you got the job like a handful of months ago, maybe what, close to a year? I mean, I know it's been a while since I've seen that post.
It was in September, that I got the job
Okay.
with Route 1. We're contracted by Amazon. Amazon doesn't hire a single driver, thankfully, because personally, I will never work for Amazon.
I've heard tough things, but that's besides the point. But I'm glad that you can work for a third party that you seem to really enjoy, especially since you've been with them since September. So really, yeah, almost close to a year at
Yeah,
this point.
eh, I've learned a lot over that year, especially working with the people I work with. It's nice to work with a small company. In I mean, we've got 40, 50 people that work with us at best.
Hmm.
I'm I'm in contact with the owner of the company and the operations manager every day. So it's like a
Okay.
small family as opposed to working for a large corporation where I would never know my boss.
Okay, so you really like that kind of close family unit that a lot of companies used to be. They used to be more family where they took care of their own.
And that's exactly what I had said at one point. It feels like this is the way it should have been, or this was the design of working for somebody else is
Hmm.
the situation that I'm currently working in. And it's unfortunate that more people don't get to have that experience because they go to work for a massive corporation where they'll never know the CEO or the board or things like that, and they're beholden to stock and investors and that sort of stuff, where I'm not. I work for a father son team,
Oh wow.
which is really really nice, uh, as opposed to working for somebody whose corporation is based out of another state.
No, I'm sure that helps your mentality and mental quite a bit. So I don't, and, feel free to share this, but what led up to a lot of that, gaining up to that like 500 pounds? I mean, because it seems like when you're under like a stressful event, that's where a lot of the overeating kind of happens, and that's not uncommon, really. Where there's a stressor, there's some type of emotional event that happens that leads people to seeking comfort. And one of the best things we find comfort in, best meaning really worse, is food because it's that
Yeah,
instant pleasure that's this is gonna make me feel better. I mean, I hate to go stereotypical. That's why it's like people always say I'm just kind of sad, maybe a little bit on the depressed side. I'm just gonna get a gallon of ice cream.
exactly. That's a thing, and I do legitimately have an eating disorder. I have been treated for basically a catch-all eating disorder.
Mhm.
This goes all the way back to my childhood. My mom married a a guy. He was a good man in the beginning, suffered an injury at work, and ultimately stopped taking his mental health medication.
Oh,
And at that point, he became very emotionally, physically abusive, mentally abusive. So I would always turn to food. That was like I would sneak off into the basement, work on my model trains, and I would grab food and I'd sit down there and I'd eat food and play with my model trains and hide out from everything else that was going on
Mm.
because I never wanted to deal with the confrontation. I was not a very confrontational person. I'm still not. So throughout my life, that pattern formed early on. I mean, I was 7, 8 years old when he got injured,
Oh,
and that's when the switch flipped in a sense. And pretty much from the time I was about 7 or 8 years old till the time I was 15 and I moved to Minnesota to live with my dad, I was under his abuse. So I moved up here, and admittedly, my stepmom and I up here have had this conversation since. She really wasn't happy that I was coming to live with them because my dad had already had his other son living there from his second marriage. So me coming to live there as well, she was unhappy because she had already raised her kids. So she took a lot of that out on my brother and I because she just wasn't happy having to raise kids anymore. She felt like she was done. So I get it.
oh,
Uh, so for those couple of years that I lived with my dad and stepmom, she was she was very emotionally abusive to me because she was just unhappy I was there. So that pattern actually carried over into my marriage. I married a woman because I had no confidence in myself, and I felt like this woman was probably the best that was going to happen for me. And to be honest with you, I would have been far better off staying single and not ever getting involved in marriage.
wow.
That took me about 20 years to figure out from the time I started dating the woman until the time I walked out that this was not the right thing for me. And that's ultimately how I wound up getting up to 538 pounds is the fact that I just checked out in life. I mean, I lost a job in 2010. I sat around and just ate and watched TV. I just didn't care anymore. I mean, I was cut off pretty much from most of the rest of the world. Uh, I barely spoke to family because she was always watching, listening, or figuring out what it is I was doing. I was under her complete control at the time.
Wow.
So that's ultimately what led me to that point. I was so mentally beat down from all those years that I was looking for a way out, and food was actually my tool towards my slow decline and my ultimate demise. That's why I was so
Oh
mad that
gosh.
they resuscitated me at first. So, I mean, I literally was crushing myself under my own body weight. I'm sure my organs were not happy with me, and even walking up and down a set of steps was difficult to do in in the early going after I started losing some weight. So all that was just mentally all the abuse I had suffered for, I mean, close to 20, 30 years of my life, it all adds up.
Yeah, I honestly I can't
Take away
imagine.
from.
Yeah, and I can't imagine going from like one abusive kind of relationship, with your stepdad to the reverse. Because it seemed like was your relationship with your dad pretty good?
Yeah, my relationship with my dad was good. It was nice that I got those couple of years to live with him. He
Uh-huh.
left when I was like 3 years old.
Oh, geez.
So I never really got to know my dad other than the little bit of time that we would talk here and there in the early going. And I think it was like 1986. I came up to Minnesota and I spent a week up here. And then it was 1993. I came up and I spent a month with my dad. And I think that's when the plan was hatched to have me come. move in and live with him because it was the next year, 94, that I actually wound up moving up here. So I really didn't have much of a relationship with my dad throughout most of my earlier years. So getting those couple of years with him was great, considering he's no longer with us. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Unfortunate reality. This is something I'm working on breaking in the family's history is longevity in the Cleats male side just doesn't exist. There's only been one Cleats male that's ever lived past 70. That was my grandfather. He lived to 71. So they call
Wow.
it the curse of the Cleats. I'm working on reversing that. My dad was 63 when he passed. He passed from end stage liver failure. So it's just something that I'm cognitive of because of the history of my own family. So that's another factor in why I'm doing all these things that I'm doing because I be that one that breaks that chain.
Yeah. I mean, that's just remarkable that you're going to be the one to break that, if you will, almost like a curse, really, like you said, a curse. Where you hear about it in families where either the males or the females just don't live long. There's some, I don't know if you want to call it entity, force, something that just takes away so many young people's lives. And 63 is young. I'm sorry, it was end stage liver, and then your grandpa living to 71. So I
Yeah.
mean, I really hope that you continue this journey really, so that way you can say it is done. Like this curse is no longer alive. It's not allowed. Because that kind of reminds me of I haven't seen much of his tweets or X tweets. Again, I don't know what to call it, but let's just call it tweets for the sake. I think it was like
I
I
do.
think
I call it Twitter still.
awesome because I know the new logo is kind of trying to look like a bird now again. But anyways,
I think
there's a
they
guy
figured
like
it out.
Legacy Builder, and I know he talks a lot about how he wants to break these curses and build a new legacy for people, and that's what you're doing. I mean, that's why you're trying to take care of your health as much more. And you went through honestly a crap load of pain. I mean, that's just putting it lightly, but seriously, from what I'm hearing you say, from a dad who left at 3, your mom married a new guy, which is never easy in any
Right.
situation. And then there's unfortunately an accident, which when things mess with our brains, an accident, I mean, can change your whole personality. I mean, you see that with Alzheimer's and things like with dementia and things like that. And then having to move to a new place, new location, and then having the reverse, the stepmom who's like, you know, I don't know if I really want you here. I mean, I can't even fathom that, honestly.
It
And
was a
for you
lot
to,
to take on.
yeah.
And of course, as a teenager, you don't really understand the things that you understand now. So mentality wise, I wasn't there. And of course, my growth over those years was really stunted from the amount of abuse that I had gone through emotionally, in a sense, because people just choose to do the things they choose, and the repercussions of that they don't fully understand or they don't care about. It's me that had to figure out how to repair the damage of those repercussions as my life progressed.
Hmm. And I think you're also a prime example that, the journey never ends. It's always continuing and it's always being refined and growth as you continue to, as the theme, with the podcast is really focused on how to reclaim your life and be a man of action. Like take responsibility for what you can take and right, like you couldn't control your upbringing. You couldn't control your mom, who your mom and dad were. But the one thing you can control is working through those challenges, finding areas to improve upon, and then losing that weight as a physical sign of progress as you work on the mental of, I don't want to go back to that person who was 500 pounds, unhappy, who wanted to no longer be here. As you alluded to, slowly eating yourself to that point of death.
That's exactly it. A lot of it looking at what you don't want to accept versus what you're willing to accept, that was a huge change for me. I now know in life what I'm not willing to accept, and those are the hills I'm willing to die on. Where in the past, I just let anyone roll over me because I didn't care enough to defend myself or stand up for myself. I wasn't strong enough. That made me an easy target. That's why my ex was so happy to just snatch me up real quick because she knew exactly what I was. She even told some of her friends the greatest quality that I have is that no matter what I did, what she did, I was willing to stay. That was what she
Whoa,
told people. That's a horrible thing to say about another human. It's just
that
like,
is just unfathomable that someone can say to exert that much control over somebody. Like, I can do what the heck I want. I know that person's going to stay.
and that's
That's
exactly
that's the
she
definition
did.
of abuse. I mean, I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, there was nights I worked 2 jobs. I basically worked 2 full-time jobs for a number of years, and she was off at the casino gambling it away and doing whatever else she was doing, and, I found out a lot of information after I finally left from a few people who weren't willing to tell me things while I was still together with her, to find out she was out cheating on me on a regular basis and out spending money and just doing ridiculous things while I'm working to support both of us in a sense. I mean, yeah, she worked throughout our marriage.
mhm.
She would work for 6 months to a year someplace, and then she would quit or get fired and go through the same process.
Oh,
Yeah, I was married to a narcissist. It was not a good situation.
well, I'm glad you're no longer in that situation where you decided to leave. That enough was enough, whether that was a year to 20 years. And making that decisions, a lot of people will say, well, if you're unhappy, just leave. Again, it's comparable to the weight loss. If you want to lose weight, quit eating as much and start working out. It's it's never that easy, and people don't always recognize the complexities of how to make a good decision. And
You're right.
one like a very famous book that actually won the authors won the Nobel Peace Prize for is called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman. And it really dives into how to make a decision. What is the decision? Do you have the right information to make a decision? Do you know the right questions to be asking? And so a lot of times we're it's almost at a surface level when we have to make a decision. We don't always recognize the complexities of things.
That's a fact. A lot of people don't understand. It's really easy to say, well, if you're unhappy, just leave. Or, if you want to lose weight, just so much. There's
Yeah.
more to it. People don't always understand the nuance. That's a big thing nowadays where people just don't have all the details and they want to make a snap just judgment and say some ridiculous stuff to people, not knowing what really goes on in someone else's life. For me, I'm
Right.
the inverse. I refuse to tell people what they need to do in life. That's for them to decide, not me. What's for me to decide is what's best for me in my life. Right now, that's the biggest part of the journey is figuring out what's best for me. Um, I have this theory or a, a principled thought. I go by the foundation of three.
Okay.
And for me, if my physical, mental, and financial health are not in alignment, I struggle more. Uh, that's currently what I'm looking at. I mean, part of the reason I took the job was so I could get back on track financially. Then I get injured and I haven't been able to work as much. So financially speaking, I'm struggling. How am I going to remedy that? Well, I'm working on that currently.
Right.
That's me working on building Rody J Media Productions, working on some other projects that will reveal themselves in the next few months to 6 months. So it's things like that, addressing each problem as they come rather than putting those problems off because they'll slow you down.
Right. And that's where if you look at any studies, the top one of always the top stressors, like the top three are really death of a family member, divorce, and financial stress. And obviously, with inflation at this point, I mean, there's a lot of people feeling that pressure. So when your finances are in order and everything, you're taking care of yourself, you feel less stress. Is there going to be some form of stress because you want to make sure you have to stick to your budget and make sure you stick to your budget? And when things like gas prices can vary from day to day, depending on the price of oil and things like that, it can throw people off a little bit. Things become a little bit less predictable, and most people love predictability. They like routines, they like order, and so you'd be very disciplined to be able to do things, whether it be financially, emotionally, physically, and taking care of yourself is one of the hardest things you ever have to do in life because it's so easy not to, right? It's so easy to watch that extra episode. It's so easy to go to the store and buy whatever you want to buy. And if you have the money, you can buy it.
That's exactly it. Discipline is a big factor that a lot of people don't understand. It's easy to do things. It's easy to talk yourself into doing things. Like this happens to me on a regular basis. I'm driving home from work. It's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. And I'm just like, oh, I'm starving. It'd be so easy to just quickly stop and hit the Burger King or the McDonald's and
Right.
grab food. And once in a while, not gonna lie, that thought does win. And there's occasions that I do that sort of thing. Um, I'm working on getting my eating habits back in order.
Mhm.
From this last injury, it really every time I get injured, it seems like it really hits me hard mentally, and then
Sure.
it unravels everything that I had been working on, and then I have to basically start over from scratch in a sense and repair some of those things. So this last time I recognized that pattern finally, and I'm like, okay, so I need to resolve that pattern. And
Yeah.
it's identifying those problems and figuring out solutions that is really going to make the difference.
Yeah. No. If and that's the key thing is being able to recognize the patterns when they happen, and taking that time to, and that's why I allude to that book because if thinking fast, we make quick decisions that we don't have to think about, but thinking slow is okay, what is going on here? Because it seems like every injury I have, I relive the past. Is this worth it? Do I even want to continue this? Why am I doing this? Oh wait, I want to live past 70. Having purposely putting in those, thoughts and those affirmations in to help you continue. And that's why words are power, words have meaning. And that's why we have to be wise and thought before we speak, because how we speak is how we're going to believe and act and everything of that matter.
You're absolutely right. And simply identifying where deficiencies are in your own life
Hmm.
and learning how to properly resolve them is going to make a big difference towards how you live in the future.
Yeah, because I know that's another famous thing. I don't know who quite said this, but it might have been Jim Rohn or someone like that. But basically, how you set yourself up today, the habits, the decisions you make today are really setting up for the person you're going to be like 5 years from now.
That's a fact. I'm building the foundation of my future right now. Took me
Yeah.
46 years to finally figure out what direction I want to head in life and what it's going to take to get there. So this year has been incredibly busy for me, and it's only going to get busier as the next few years go on. I have major projects in the works that I want to build out, and that stuff all takes time. It's it's not an overnight thing. You don't become successful overnight on the grand scale. Yes, there's those outliers that have somehow gained popularity
Sure.
in a 24, 48 hour period. Like I had a little taste of that in April when I posted my day one photo. I went from a couple hundred followers who didn't really engage me to the span of 10 days. I was over 12,000 followers on my Twitter account. And
Wow.
that was a whole new experience for me. Like my tweet went viral. So I
Yeah.
know on some level what that's like. And it was cool to get to watch Dave have the same thing happen. He had a tweet go viral, and I've gotten to watch him do some really cool things. I mean, I knew Dave Dana back when he had a couple hundred followers and early on in his journey. Actually, my personal mentor, who goes by the Twitter account Baphomet, he introduced me to Dave,
Hmm.
and I thought that was really cool. And Dave got that moment, and it was cool to watch.
Well, people love a good story, and that's what a lot of people say is like learn how to craft your story. Like, who are you? Don't be afraid to tell people of your mistakes, your failures, because that makes you more human. It makes you more relatable. It makes you more approachable. And Dave's just a regular guy. He's just, I know he's studying for a CPA, so I don't know necessarily if he's like an accountant or something like that.
Right.
But
Uh,
the point is,
as
he's
I
just sharing his
understand it,
story.
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
please. No, go ahead.
As I understand it, yeah, he's last I talked to him is I think he's going to be testing soon. So
Yeah, I know
he's
he was looking at
a
like
numbers
state
guy.
courses. Yeah, but I mean, and he met Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, got to work out with the guy. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah,
how many people get to say they got to work out with Arnie?
I know. One of the who really made bodybuilding in the '80s like as big as it is now between him, Sylvester Stallone, and I know there's a few other guys. Well, Ronnie Coleman
My
and people like.
personal favorite, Lou Ferrigno,
Okay, I'm
the
sure if I see a
original
picture,
Hulk.
really. Oh, the original. Okay, yeah, now I know what you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
like if I see a picture, I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. That guy was ginormous.
Oh yeah, and he was all natural. And to hear his story, how he grew up and how he basically created his own weights. Like he would put
Oh wow.
concrete in buckets and
So
stuff
we
like
want
that.
like
And
hardcore, like old school.
yeah,
Oh,
because he didn't have the resources to do it any other way. So he figured out how to work within in his abilities to get to where he wanted to go. That's the real message that I take out of his story. And when he shot the Incredible Hulk TV series, he was in that physical condition the whole time. It wasn't AI generated. That didn't exist back then.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, they basically spray painted you, and you had to look the part. You had to be tall and muscular, and be funny and relatable. And that's what's so cool about what Twitter X provides. It provides a lot of people, especially when you get into the personal development space. That majority of them, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, um, who most people just want to improve, right? They want to have people cheer them on and hear the stories, and because a lot of times that was their daily minds. If I post, a workout video, someone might be like, "Oh yeah, definitely that gave me the encouragement to do another workout." I'm like, "Wow, you did, too awesome." So for you, when I see you and you're posting that you're going for your walks or you're exercising, I'm like, man, I gotta get start exercising myself. So it's like it's awesome how that works. Like you see somebody, and it's like, okay, I gotta start back up and things like that. And oh man, you struggle with the yo-yo effect? Oh man, I struggle with the yo-yo effect like all the time. So that's what's so cool is like how social media and things can bring us together when it's used for good. And when things are used for good, that's
That's
when you're trying to be encouraging, positive, uplifting, give people hope, and purposely define your feed for that. And if it gets to other things, unfollow, block, and don't be afraid to do that. Don't allow that negativity because once it gets into here, that's when you get into trouble, and you know that quite well.
oh yeah. The world is going to attempt to distract you in any way possible so you don't reach your goals. There's people actively out there that don't want you to reach those milestones because that could potentially take away from what they're doing. It's an unfortunate reality that we see every day. So,
Well, and the comical
how to
part,
turn this distractions?
yeah. And the comical part is most of those people don't even have a picture. It's an either an anime or some cartoonish or anything design. Honestly, if you really look at all the people who are quote unquote trolls and who try to distract you, and that's what it is. You have to remind yourself it's a distraction. Like it's like you don't even have like a true picture of yourself. Like, okay. And then you have to tell yourself, am I going to focus on this one negative? Or do I want to focus on the 20 positive comments I just got? And unfortunately, the mind will focus in on that one negative. It's like, well, why didn't they like it? I did the best I could. I always 20 people. And it's just like, you know what? Got to stop that mind, because the mind is a powerful thing, powerful creation. And we just have to keep our focus on the goal and having people in our circle who support us. So, as we kind of wrap up today, how would you like other men to kind of step up as a call to action? What would you like to do to encourage other men to kind of reclaim their life, become men of action? Like, what would you say to help? What would you like? What would your call be today?
So for me, the first thing I would tell any man is be ready to do what you want to do and learn how to do it without making excuses. And it's not selfish to invest in yourself. Becoming a better man helps everyone else around you. Simply put, having strong men in this world is part of what makes this world go around. There's people out there that understand this thought and are actively pushing to subvert the what they call masculine man. They want to knock the alphas out of this society in favor of the betas. Don't fall for it. The reality is there's nothing wrong with being a man of principle and character. You're a value to yourself and to your community, as well as to your own personal community, your family, your friends, things like that. Also understand the people around you are going to be at the level you're at. If you're unhappy
Mhm.
with the level you're at, start looking at the people who are around you. That was a huge thing for me. Taking out a lot of people who were only draining from my personal space rather than helping me build my personal space had to go. So think about those things as you progress along. There's a lot that you can do within your own self when you're ready to do it. So just be ready. That's the big thing. And I don't ever want to tell anybody what they should do.
Right.
So that's the one thing I can say is just be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, learn how to become ready if that's the goal that you have.
I love it. Learn from Jason today by the call of action. Don't be selfish. Begin the journey of taking care of yourself. Be a man of integrity. Be a man of character. Be a man of belief that you can go from unmotivated to motivated, undisciplined to disciplined. Take it from Jason's story today, an incredible journey that he's still on. He's not done yet. You're not done yet, Jason. I'm letting you know that. You're not done. You
No,
still got a ways to go. I want to see you eventually do one pull up. I want to eventually see you live past 71. I want to see you just live a happy, healthy life and pursue that happiness, that we're in this great country of the United States where we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you want to be happy, you got to pursue it. And pursuing it means if you feel like you haven't been taking care of yourself, make the decision today to do the most unselfish thing, and that's to take care of yourself. Jason, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I love you, man, that you're here and your incredible story of triumph. And don't worry, guys, if you want to follow this incredible man on his weight loss journey, all his socials will be in the description below. Have a blessed day. And remember, become a man of action and integrity. And if you need a group or a community, Men's Life Academy is here for you. And I'll also be in the description below. And I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.